Well, good day, everybody. I'm excited to spend some time with three local legends here to Western Canada. Today we have Abby Moore, who currently lives in Fernie, BC. She's originally from Scotland. I've got Matt Shepard, who's from Alberta, and Dave Proctor, who's from Okotoks. So we wanted to put together a video that will help people that are trying to go a lot longer than they thought they could in any type of race, but today we're talking specifically on the Backyard Ultra that we're hosting here May the 4th in Lethbridge, which is the Oldman Backyard Ultra. Thankfully, all of these folks are signed up to come down and lay down their best, and we're looking forward to an interesting performance here on May the 4th. We actually are sold out to that race right now, and I'm excited that these individuals have thrown their name in the hat. So welcome to Matt, Dave, and Abby.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Corey.
It's good to have you. So I wanted to kind of open up just because some of you have gone like a really long ways, but I wanted to ask we're going to go through order. So maybe start with Abby and work our way down. What's the first race you've ever done and the distance of that race?
The first race I did was, I think, Rundle's Revenge 50K back in 2012.
You started at a 50K. Okay, that's
Well,
all.
sorry, I'd done a few little kind of trail runs, but I was definitely very new. And 2 weeks later, I had Sinister 7. So I really ramped things up rapidly there.
And you did the 100 mile, the solo?
Yeah, it was a bit short of 100 miles at that point, about 10K short. But yeah, so I did Rundle's Revenge, made that, and then 2 weeks later did Sinister.
Wow, that's awesome.
So a punchy start. I think in hindsight, that was the best way to go about it. Now I know too much.
Yeah, now you know too much. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to bleed yourself up to there. Just start there and work your way backwards.
Yeah, for sure.
How about you, Shep?
Oh man. So my first race was back in 2010. I had heard about Scott Jurick's 24-hour American record. And so I was like, oh man, people can run for 24 hours. And I just set up my own race and just ran. I only made it 12 hours and like 53 miles, but it was a good introduction into ultra running.
So before that, you'd never run like a 10K or half marathon or anything like that?
I ran when I was in the forces just like for fitness, and then I ran for pleasure, but I didn't race. And then I was like, oh, I'm gonna try this. Like
Wow.
I could do this.
Wow, that's awesome. Did you have to read anything on jumping into deciding to do a 24-hour run? Like,
Oh my gosh. Like I don't know if it was ignorance or ego, but I didn't look up anything about like what do other people do. I just like, okay, it's running. Like, like I don't look up how to breathe either, but
that's
it's really interesting how I went into it, and just with no idea what I was doing. I ate maybe just a handful of things and drank some water. There's a reason I bailed at 12 hours. It's a pretty hard challenge.
yeah, that's impressive. Abby, what about you? Did you read anything? Like, how did you get prepared for deciding to go do a 50K on the front end
Um,
of the right
yeah,
after?
my husband had done Sinister the year before. It was actually the year we are getting married, and it was a month before we are getting married in Scotland, and I was convinced he was going to die. I thought it was crazy, and did it as a team, and then he made it, and that kind of gave me the bug, and so I kind of just fed off him a little bit and took his advice, and off I trotted, and that was the start of it.
Wow, that's amazing. At any point during either one of those, did both of you say, I'm not going to go any further, like 2 hours in or something, or was it the whole time you're like, okay, this is good?
It was weirdly good, yeah. Things have got worse since then, but at that time it was great.
That's awesome. How
Yeah.
about you, Shep?
Yeah, at 12 hours, I was like just dragging myself around the course. It was snowing and I was miserable. And so, yeah, we all collectively were like, maybe we should just call it done.
Yeah, halfway is good. That's awesome. That's awesome. How about you, Dave? What was the first race you did in your running career?
In my ultra running career, it was back in 2006. It was Lost Soul down Lethbridge, the 100-kilometer distance there. And yeah, I had my ass handed to me, but it was awesome. It was worth the price of admission, and then went back the next year and did better. But I remember, yeah, that first year I met Wayne. Doesn't remember this, but I met this awesome dude. yeah, Wayne Gaudet, he ended up winning the race. And yeah, ever since I wanted to be like Wayne, and still, you know, half as good looking as Wayne, but we'll get there. He's
Yeah,
getting old.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You'll
Yeah.
catch up, I'm sure. So after you start this journey and enter into the sort of ultra world, we all kind of run for pleasure and stuff. I'll share mine actually. Mine will break your neck, you know, when you hear this. My first race in adult life, I ran when I was in my youth, but I got to a point where I was not in any healthy shape at all, and I wanted to kind of get back into shape. So my first race was actually a 5K. So I just decided I'm going to go do a 5K, and I've had a couple 100-mile attempts, 100K completion and stuff, but those are kind of the longest races that I've done to date. But you know, at 5K or even 10K, I could never have thought I'm going to go do 50K. So Abby, to you, starting there, and you guys, I know Dave, you had some road running experience and some marathon experience before ultras. You know, and Matt, that's crazy. Like the fact that you kind of start there and I'll just go for this, you know, but that's kind of the brand that you need to have in your brain to go do some of this stuff. So with that, I want to go through kind of the longest races you guys have completed, or maybe the biggest things that you say, like this was the craziest thing that I've experienced as far as distance goes. Maybe we'll start this time with Shep. What about you?
Wow. I mean, kind of big distance is my thing, just kind of pushing as far as I can. I really got into the 6-day format, 144 consecutive hours. That's enjoyable. It's challenging, but it's a little bit slower than say 100-mile pace. So you have a lot of time to really just kind of figure things out and work through it and see how many more points can I put up on the board. So I would say not my longest effort, but my most arduous effort would have been my first 6-day attempt at across the years in 2019 to 2020. It's 6 days long, so it starts in December, ends in January. But I did it in a format called Around the Clock, in which I had to complete at least one lap of the course, which is 1 mile, every hour for the entire duration. So it really limited the amount of sleep I was able to get. And it was my first time at a 6-day. So like just being in that space of where like I'm totally over my head. I have no idea what I'm getting into. And I'm just kind of like learning that, hey, when you stretch it out over days and days, you have lots of time to figure it out. So it was a really great learning experience. I ended up doing 701 kilometers or 435 miles
Wow.
for 6 days. So that was a great one. I was really proud of that one to come out the other side and not be totally destroyed. I felt really good, really strong, and so definitely a highlight of my race career for me.
So with those 6-day races, are they basically you get in there and you lay it down as many miles as you can get in 6 days, or is there an ending? Like, could you be done in 5 days? How do those work for people that have never kind of heard of this craziness before?
So it's a time-based race. You have 144 hours to go as far as you please. You can take breaks anytime you like. The format I was on restricted me to 1 mile per hour at minimum, but I could go as many as I would like. And yeah, it's just continuous. You can quit any time you want. Your score is whatever you scored in that amount of time. So 6 consecutive days to go as far as you can.
Wow. Wow, that's a little ways, Shep. You know what? May the 4th be with you. We're looking forward to having you here and spending some days with you. How about you, Dave? What about yourself?
Longest race I've ever done, or most arduous, was about 18 months ago when I ran across the country. So that was 7,159 kilometers. Not that I'm counting, but like it was, yeah, it's a hell of a long ways. Ran it in 67 days and 10 hours and in 27 minutes. So that was 105 kilometers a day on average for the duration. Broke the Trans-Canadian speed record, but that was really kind of an accumulation of a lot of things, building up from, being a 100-kilometer specialist early in my running career to 100-mile, then 24-hour, then multi-day, and, backyard. I still feel like, I have a lot left to prove in backyard. I feel, 100+ hours is so totally doable. As long as you have a group full of idiots who want to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Let's go.
yeah. I'm talking to you, the audience, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Whoever's listening to this is the idiot. Yeah.
Yeah. What
And
a
so, yeah, it's ultimately like, I don't know, the further I run into my career, the more I realize that it's not the physical aspects that cripple me. And even run across Canada, I was never once like destroyed. You weren't broken. But mentally I came close a number of times. And so, it's still trying to find the bottom of that well or the end of the rope. I haven't found it. I want to still find it. I'm 43, like you, Corey. Got a ways to go still
You
to
got
to, to
you
find
got a
that.
couple miles left.
Couple miles. Yeah.
Mhm. That's awesome. What was the total number of kilometers across the country again?
7,159. So that's 4,440 something miles. So second biggest country in the world. Al Howie had the record back in 1991. He ran 100 kilometers a day, and that was my goal, was to break his speed record. I broke it by 5 days. So, but yeah, it was the consistency. It was the mental attitude. Having guys like Shep out there on the highway with me, who is like a dog. He's like a golden retriever. He's just that guy that's like,
Yeah.
Keeps everybody upbeat and stays on top of all the logistics. Yeah, it was a summer that went perfect. But it's to extinguish the idea that you have a limit, because anybody in the world would say 105, that's not doable. Yeah, it is. Like your fitness builds throughout, and as long as you don't start, giving doubt oxygen, give it space, then you are capable of a hell of a lot more, like a hell of a lot more than what you ever thought.
Hmm. Yeah, I would agree to that. That's amazing. That's a good run. That's a pretty decent distance, Dave. Do you
Hmm.
think you rounded up to the nearest kilometer to make that number sound bigger, or what do you think?
Probably. That's kind of my, like, okay, let's be honest. Like I'm 5'11",
Okay.
let's say it's a time to be honest. When you're in your 40s, you're like, okay, I could
Yeah,
be
whatever.
honest. I've been telling everybody I'm 6 feet tall, and I'm getting nowhere closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had back surgery, so I'm assuming I'm shorter now than what I was. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm 5'11", and I probably ran 7,158 kilometers, but whatever.
Whatever. It's 1 kilometer.
Whatever.
Not much.
Whatever.
That's awesome. Abby, how about yourself?
I don't think I should bother answering after those two answers. But you guys are young. You're 43. I just turned 44, so we
Oh,
haven't got an excuse. I have run 100 miles. I was pretty stoked on that. I'm not sure I have the drive to go longer than that in a race, but yeah, I was really happy with that goal, and yeah, that's
That
my distance.
having attempted 100 miles to have not completed them, I think it's amazing that you've done that. And I mean, there's very low percentage of humans that actually toe the line, and it's not just 100 miles from here to Calgary, it's 100 miles through the mountains that accompanies a couple hills and other types of things that you got to go through. So that's nothing to. It's unfortunate that some guy that ran 7,000 kilometers.
I know, you guys, what the hell?
But it's
hmm.
still amazing, Abby. That's awesome. Okay, so moving into, I mean, we've all done a number of races. You all have done many more than myself. What would be the sort of biggest comeback story that you've had during a race where you've gotten to a place where it's like, I'm in a dark place in my brain. What kind of turned for you? Whether it was something you ate, something someone said to you, like something that happened where kind of turned the race around for you when you were at a point where you kind of felt like, I just don't want to go on anymore. Maybe this time we'll start with Abby.
Oh, I can't think of an example.
If you don't have one, that's okay. But
I think in all honesty, every race. I think the earlier days I had less of it, kind of doubt. I like Dave's analogy of giving doubt oxygen, and I don't think I did that in the early days. Oxygen was going to forward progress, and I dealt with that a lot better. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. That first year at Sinister, I hadn't got a clue. I didn't want to know where I was in the pack of women. And I mean, yeah, I just didn't really know what to expect or how it was going to go. My crew was amazing though, and they just kept me going. And I think I'd slipped into second, but I didn't have a clue, of course, before the last leg. And a friend of mine who was crewing me ran out in flip-flops just to let me know, even though they'd promised to not tell me where I was position-wise. And I was distraught. Knowing that I had been in first until then, and not knowing the entire race, I hadn't got a clue. So yeah, I think Rich chasing after me up a hill in flip-flops really spurred me on to kind of drop the hammer and go get that top spot back. And that was a race that kind of started it all for me, that 2012 Sinister. So I was like, okay, I can do hard things. I was never a runner. I used to hate running. I used to hide in the trees at school cross country and come last and loathe it. And I think it's just that sudden realization that you can do something. And the amazing people I met that first year, I still am good friends with, and have a decade and more of kind of enjoying big adventures with them. And so grateful to all the people that helped along the way and kept us going.
Do you find, Abby, when you're running now, like the subsequent races to that one, are you still in the same mindset where you're trying to like not know exactly what's going on and you just kind of go out and do your thing? Like, what's your strategy after that race?
I think I'm way more aware and get more affected by it, and kind of probably expending too much energy on worrying about that. And people's expectations, thinking, oh, I might do well. I don't always, and I'm definitely way less competitive about it, and just try and enjoy any races that I do now. Grateful to be able to get to do them. But yeah, definitely a bit of a different mindset back there, just from purely not knowing how to go about it or what to expect.
That's interesting. I have found in some where I'm like obsessing over like a pace I wanted to be at or where I should be at a certain point, and then getting that all wrapped up in my brain. So that's interesting that like not until leg 7 did you know what was where you were at to be able to kind of push it, or like 6 or 7, whatever you said there, that's when, even there's a shift in your brain, because up to that point you're just enjoying running and trying your best and have a good crew that's supporting you. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Cool. How about you, Dave?
A couple things come to mind, but I guess when I was running Lost Soul, I forget what year that was in. It was like 2016 or something, 2017. I was training as well to run, my first attempt to running across the country back in 2018. So I decided to run down from Okotoks down to Lethbridge the day before the race, and then to run the 100 miles, the next day at Lost Soul. I had no intent on racing, but then, how things happen. So all throughout the race, I found myself in 12th place, then in 10th place and 6th place. And before you know it, at 50 miles in, I'm past the first place guy. So I'm in first place. And like, I had no intent on racing, but this guy, I ended up giving half of my team burger to and said, hey, go get it, champ. Not expecting to see this guy, but like about 100 kilometers into the race, there he is on my ass again. And so all throughout the final bit, it's funny, like when you think that there's nothing left, and then you're now scared and you're like, hey, I've just committed the last 10 or 12 hours. So I'm not going to get past now. So I started running well, but then long story short, at the second last aid station, I thought I gapped this guy, and I thought, okay, this is easily going to be in the bag now. We got a phone call from with my pacer, and it turned out that I didn't gap him. He's gapping me. He's catching up real quick. So at that point in time, I dropped my pacer. I just start sprinting up those 3 hills in the last section of the course, and I looked down at my watch and I kept seeing 3 something. So I was dropping out of 4 minutes a kilometer, and there's no way that if you would have convinced me that I could hold that pace, being as tired as I was, but I was afraid. Right. And in fact, I turned around and I see this headline coming running down one of the last hills. And I looked at my watch. I'm like, oh my God, I'm running sub 4 minute kilometers and he's still catching me. Like, how is this even humanly possible? So I dropped the hammer from that point forward. I came in, I won the race and set the course record. But turned out that guy running down the hill was my pacer. So it's just that that type of thing that happens, and you're completely out of it at that point. I'm 19 hours into a run,
Yeah.
But it's amazing that when you have convinced yourself that there's nothing left, there is nothing left. And then, for whatever reason, you find a bit of motivation to like, there's a guy right there. Like I'm an antelope and there's a wolf chasing me.
Yeah.
Like you run. It turns out there's a way more left in the tank. And so I think that there's a number of those instances all throughout my running life. But that's one that kind of stands out.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fun. You're being spooked by yourself with the pace.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's almost like this weird gift from God at that point. It's like, okay, you need to move, and I'm going to give you a reason to be afraid, which isn't a reason, because it was my pacer, it wasn't the guy.
Wow. So was the guy ever gapping you, or did your pacer just fill your head a little bit to kind of get you going?
He was gapping me on the Pavon to Pavon loop. So as much as I opened up during that section, he ended up gaining by 10 minutes. So he was only 7 minutes back, but then I ended up beating him by I think 28 or 30 minutes in the end. Because that was a quick pace. That was going to be hard to catch.
Wow. I don't want to know who your pacer was, but that's a good pace for a pacer.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. I want to go into nutrition a little bit here, and then I want to hear a funny story from each of you and your experience of running. So general nutrition, we're going to talk about, I mean, people should eat healthy as much as they can. I lean into the other side of it sometimes more than often. But what do you say for like the week leading up to a race and then during a race? I want to know kind of how you preparing up to that, say, 7 days beforehand, each one of you. And then during a race, what's your fuel look like? And in addition to that, I want to know the weirdest thing that you eat during a long race, something that would be maybe stand out in your nutrition. So why don't we start with Shep?
Oh man. Well, I'll start by saying like that my opinion here is that nutrition is incredibly personal. Like everybody has a different stomach and like digestive system. So I really like to kind of share that the fact that my brother is allergic to peanuts. And so I eat peanut butter every single day, like by the spoonful, and he can't even touch it or he has to go to the hospital. So like just to show like how dramatically the changes between bodies can be, even people so closely related. So you really have to dial in what works for you. And that's been a really big strategy in the first few years of my ultra running career was, adding in those elimination diets where you take everything out. I went full vegan for a while and then started adding different things in and finding out how does this affect my body? How does this work for me? And then just kind of really just dialing in the things that I like to eat that I typically am looking for during a race, as well as the things that I should be eating to help keep me healthy. But I would say that the oddest thing that you're going to see me eat, and you'll see me eat this very consistently, is mayonnaise. I eat so much mayonnaise.
Like by the spoonful?
Just like I buy the squirt bottle so I can just right into the mouth.
Are you kidding me?
No.
You have that at your aid station when you're like,
So
Yeah, that's
gross.
weird.
Let's go. You got to get them
that is impressive. Well, I like,
calories.
yeah,
That's very Euro.
Very Euro.
Wow.
very, very Euro. Okay, well, that's helpful. How about you, Abby?
Well, I do like mayonnaise. My husband hates it, but I don't eat it like that. I think that would be the end of it if I did. But no mayonnaise. I agree. It's so personal. I don't do much differently in the week leading in. I do work for a brewery, so I try and just not drink too much beer, and just try and feel healthy and good and strong. And then during the race, it just totally depends. I never quite know what I'm going to be stomaching. The heat always affects me really badly. My stomach. So yeah, I go for a lot of liquid calories where I can. A backyard ultra, I've only done one and it was off the back of a broken toe, so I had to stop after 50K. I promised my doctor I would. So I haven't really done this before, so I don't know moving at this pace and this kind of terrain. I'm guessing more real food based on how much time I have, but we'll see. Yeah, I think I definitely am a bit of a sugar fiend, but yeah, I do try and do a lot of liquid calories as well, just when my tummy's going or when it's really hot.
Right. So this is your first backyard ultra experience that you're running coming up in May?
It is, yeah.
Oh, that's
Yep.
exciting. Wow.
Hmm.
That's awesome. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I think like kind of my weirdest food, it's not weird, but it's alarming. And even ask Shep, he was crewing me across Canada, he would drive his main goal. I was a happy man if he would stop at every bakery and buy the entire bakery. And so baked goods. Who doesn't love lemon loaf and cinnamon buns and like that crap like that? You could eat those for days and never get sick of it. And I never got sick of it. And so, yeah, I expected the backyard race. I'll have like a ton of like not like bad baked goods, like the stuff at the grocery store, like good, proper small town bakery, some 75-year-old woman named Hazel who made it, butter and cream and sugar and all the things.
Yeah.
I think that the week before, it's like anything. You have to prime the pump. And so, a constant, yeah, I mean, our gastric tissues are so adaptive. And typically what you do for them in those 3 days, 7 days before is kind of how they start to, what they expect and expect to eat often. They expect to eat smaller portions, like, 300 to 500 calories per session. But so you wake up in the morning, first thing you do is put food in your gut, get those arteries and capillaries kind of blooming to your gut. And the more you do that, the quicker you're going to have gastric emptying. So getting it out of your system, through your system. And so you just eat more regularly the week before. So it's like anything else. Same thing as fueling, drinking. So hydration is just consuming a lot of fluid all throughout the week because, if you were to expect on race day, if you were to start drinking fluid at the amount that you're going to be when you're running, but you don't do that the week before, your body's gonna reject it.
Right.
And ask anybody in a backyard race, you start seeing somebody vomit, it's a ticking time bomb. They're done in 2 hours. So your gastric tissues are probably the most important tissues in a backyard format.
So leading into this, now that Abby's here, we can both get your life hacks right now, but we'll lean into both Dave and Shep on this one. What do you think is different? Because the pace of a backyard is substantially slower than a 100-mile or the 6-day thing that Shep's done and stuff, or even running across Canada. You're running at a different pace than even a backyard. So what do you think's different? I know I've heard some of your strategies, Dave, and I've tried to sort of introduce them when I'm doing a backyard. I've done 3. So this is where I met this Dave and Shep at the first backyard ultra. This is Outrun Rare, and it says 6 laps. And Laz wrote on this, and he says only 62 shy of a record. That was my introductory to the backyard. I ran the one that you hosted in the mud and watched Shep go and win that one. So it was kind of fun. But now that you've done a handful of them, what's different about how you eat during one of those races compared to like, the other races that we do? Either one
Yeah,
of you.
myself or Shep.
Either,
Yeah, I guess I could start. Yeah, I could open with that. It's a weird format, right? Because, you are going to be given 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, to sit down, eat, drink, do whatever you want to do. So you have a point in time where so your heart rate goes down and your gastric tissues get a lot more blood. And so, there are different strategies. I know myself personally, I love taking food out with me on the course and eating it 10, 15 minutes before you're done a loop so that when you are sitting, I know this doesn't sound like a lot of time, but your heart rate drops enough that all your blood flow just floods to your gut. And you can be, have a big hunk of lemon loaf or a boost recovery drink or whatever it is, move through your system pretty quickly. And so if you play your cards right, you're, in a regular race where you're constantly going, you're like, hey, I'm going to take in 250 calories an hour. You could take in 500 calories an hour. You get in this format if you make it a priority. And so, and as well too, like it's your own personal aid station at the 6.7-kilometer loop every hour. So like, there's no excuses outside of you not being prepared.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. How about you, Shep? Any hacks specific to the backyard format for fueling?
Yeah, I mean, like Dave really nailed it. It is very specific to everybody. This is going to be my, I think, 8th backyard now. And I've tried all different formats of trying to go really fast and then having more time to rest. And I found that for me personally, like the 50 to 55-minute range, and like Dave said, slowing down in the last bit so that you can eat, and then bring it in feeling a little bit recovered as you hit the aid station. Then you're nice and relaxed. You could do what you need to do, and then just keep moving. So when I look at a backyard, I just imagine that I'm going to be moving for 24 hours, and the aid station stops are just like micro pit stops of like, you know, like you could almost eliminate a lot of them. And if you were just walking or, you know, light jogging, you could do this pace very easily. And you would only need maybe 5 aid stations, you know, so getting to have 24 aid stations is really phenomenal. And you just slow it down, and just kind of like just spend a long few days on your feet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I've seen that in other ones that I've participated in, even last year. You know, we had some very strong runners that could have went a lot longer, but I think they went too fast on the front end. And I mean, Laz always says, and we repeat the same thing, but like, you don't have to win the lap. Like, you know, you have to stay here until a few days from now. That's how this thing is going to go down if you want to kind of be at the front, right? So that's great. Okay, last
and
question.
sorry to Corey to
Yeah.
interject there, because I think that there's something really interesting to kind of insert here. And
Sure.
I remember, you know, Shep and I have been down to, you know, Laz's backyard down in Tennessee, the World Championships twice. And I remember, yeah, at the very beginning, you know, Laz talked to me, you know, not in front of everybody, but he said, you know, there's never been somebody who ever finished the loop first in 24 hours and has ever won it. So the first person comes in first, and you know, they never win. So it's pacing yourself in the first 24 hours that it ends up doing well. And so ultimately he says, Dave, don't be that guy. And I remember that year I came in first place, I think like 5 of the first 10 laps. And every time I came through, he would yell at the top of his lungs, hey, everybody, look, it's that guy. And it was just, it was hilarious, right? Because it was like, okay, you're right. You know, and I didn't win that year. I didn't even come close. So it's true, you know, pacing yourself. Like, you know, it's an ultra marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that even last year, when I did the Oldman, I had reached out to Shep, got some advice from him. I think I might have talked to you, Dave, and I talked to another individual from BC, and just to get tips. And the biggest thing that I got was pick the places you're going to walk on the first lap. Don't wait until you need to walk them, even though you're fresh. Just pick the places, enjoy the walk, and I tried to be in that 50 to 55-minute range. I think it was 52 minutes on almost every lap, which gave me ample time to deal with what I needed to, and felt good. I had my tire blow up. My left ankle kind of did something weird that I'm still dealing with, but I still felt great. You know, it was, I could have went a little further. So I'd like to go into two more things. We want to learn the funniest thing that has happened to you in a race. Share that. And then I want us to give one last slug of advice to those that are listening here. So if you have a funny story, please share. If you don't, we can take a pass. Whoever wants to start.
Oh, I've got one. And this goes back to that 6-day, my first 6-day in which I was running the 1 mile per hour. And then I was very, very tired. And by the, you know, 5th and 6th day, you are really just struggling to hold on to reality. And I remember looking at the gravel, and I could see shapes and faces and artwork in the gravel, the shadows casted by the gravel, the lights on the gravel. And as I'm, you know, so I've done this loop over 400 times at this point. And I am coming up on this corner, and I see this small Asian man in one of those, you know, rice hats, the triangle field hats.
Yeah.
And he's crouched down. He's going to jump up and scare me. And I'm thinking, I've been running for so long. Like, how dare you try to scare me? So I shout and I say, hey, you know, hey. And as the words exit my mouth, it returns into being a fire hydrant, and there was nobody there. But I just remember, like, as the words were going, I said, hey, and then all of a sudden I am shouting at a fire hydrant. And I was like, that was the most lucid. I was 100% convinced that this fella was about to jump out and scare me. And that was the point. I was like, wow, the brain is a really wild thing.
That is fun.
Hmm.
How about you, Abby? Do you have one?
Um, yeah, I guess so. I just suddenly thought of this. It was about, I think, on the last leg of Sinister, but the second year I did it, I went back for more, stupidly. And yeah, I turn around the corner on the last leg. I'm exhausted. I'm kind of, booking it to home, and this skunk comes out in the trail and is about to spray me. And I just absolutely lose it. And I'm like throwing things at the skunk, and like telling it to, not a freaking chance after all this. Like if someone heard my skunk monologue yelling, they'd have been like, what the hell is going on? They thought it was a grizzly, but I was like, not after all this I've just been through. A skunk is not going to take me down right at the last minute. So yeah, he made a quick work of getting out of there. I was losing
Nice.
it. And I don't think I was hallucinating. I'm pretty sure it was a skunk and it was happening. But yeah, not a chance.
That's yeah, so you're like less than 5 or 10 miles kind of from the end, and you're gonna get laced with a
Oh
skunk.
yeah, not even like 8K from the end, and I was just like, not a chance. Like
Not today.
I'm scared of wildlife. I'm not from this country. I
Yeah.
still get kind of pretty anxious. I was like, I've made it. We're close to home. I could see the lights, and yeah, this skunk comes out and tries to take me down.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Dave, how about yourself?
Yeah, it's a shitty story, but I'll go with it. I was in Qatar at the World 100K Championships. It was like 12, 13 years ago. And yeah, I had no idea. Like it was a 5 kilometer looped course in downtown Qatar, which is crazy. And 4 of the 5 kilometers of the loop is run on granite. And so it's just like super stiff
Wow.
and rigid and gross. But that wasn't the gross part of the story. The gross part is like, they were having issues with the porta potties, and I guess they have a flushing mechanism in there, which nobody knew. So there was backups, and after a while, about 60, 70 kilometers in, I looked and there was like people going to the bathroom while they were running, and they were pouring water bottles down their pants. Like this was like pre-rehearsed, like a bidet while running. And so turned out probably half of the runners out there were pooping their pants and running. And it was crazy. Max King ended up winning it from the States, and he ended up stopping and going to the bathroom in one of the porta potties that was overflowing. And he almost lost because he used the porta potty, and everybody was like, "Hey, you just don't care enough to win." And he's like, "I like finish line photos, and I can't be covered in poop. I can't be that guy." And I couldn't be that guy either. I was like, "Nope, I'm holding it. No, I'm not pooping myself." And so, it's maybe a badge of honor up to this point. I've never pooped myself in a race. Yeah, not yet.
Wow. That's
Not yet.
I thought, could that have been a hallucination, but it's real life. That's what you actually went through.
It was everywhere, and you had to like run. I ran way further than 100 kilometers because you had to run around it, and it was the grossest thing ever. And on granite, like it's like there's no like the story gets worse, right? Like it was crazy. And then at the after party, I couldn't look anybody in the eye and be like, "I saw you pooping yourself."
Yeah,
Like, why would you show up here?
that is the most disgusting story.
It's the worst. I would never go back again.
I'll share one with you guys. My first longer race that I ever did was called the Half Moon in August. It's not like a 50K. It was like sort of an adventure race out in the mountains, and they give you like 15 checkpoints, and part of it's running and hiking up mountains and stuff, and then part of it was biking, and then there was like this swimming in a swamp thing. So my brother-in-law and I, we were running in this race together. You have to do it as a team. And we'd gone through the running, we went through swimming through the swamp, then we got on our bikes, and I was just learning like taking salt pills, and your legs can cramp and all this stuff. And we were up and down some hills on the bikes, and we came down this really aggressive hill flying down that thing, and we get to the bottom, and I hopped off my bike, and both of my legs locked up. Like I'm like walking around, and I'm like, Tom, I can't bend my knees. Like my legs are stuck, and I'm exhausted. It's the first time I'd ever gone. Like I think we're at 8 or 9 hours, which was for us at the time a long ways. And I'm like thinking in my mind, this is so stupid. I'm gonna have to be airlifted off of this mountain because I can't walk. Like this is so pathetic. and I let the biggest fart of my life out, like in that moment, for whatever reason, in the exact moment that I did that, I'm like, hey, my legs are working fine. Let's get on the bike again. So I don't know that there's any science behind that, but in that moment, we were laughing our heads off in the middle of the woods there. And I just told him, going forward, I can't stop at all with my legs now on this bike until we get back to home base. If I stop and have them straight, I don't want to have this thing happen in me again, because I didn't think I had another one in me. So that I never had a hallucination or anything like that, but that was kind of a fun experience. Okay, last question statement that I want. Imagine you are standing in front of one of the people signed up for this race, or anywhere in the world that might be watching this video as a support to their training, and you want to inspire them to like go for it, to like don't stop, don't let the dark place stop you from going like as far as you absolutely can. I want you to sort of speak into the life of the person watching this. Each one of you kind of give them an inspirational push, and that'll be how we conclude. We'll start with Dave.
Oh, putting me on the spot. Run for your life. You know, I know that sounds so cliche and everything, but you know, you're gonna run to a point where you're gonna give up on yourself, and make this opportunity be the first that you don't. That, you know, you put yourself first and stop listening to those voices inside your head that tell you you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, and people don't like you, that you're pathetic. And, you know, find a level of self-worth within yourself that will hold you above that. And as long as you find that space of worth within you, that I am worthy of whatever suffering comes my way, whatever comes your way, and believe me, it's going to get shit out there. Like, you're going to hurt like hell. But there's never more of a proud moment in your life when you should have been taken down by the knees, but yet you smile. And that's where champions are created. And so this is a beautiful opportunity for you to find that space and run for your life out there, because the rest of your life, you'll be an 80-year-old man one day, or woman, unable to do this, but on that day you did it.
That's really helpful. Thanks, Dave. Abby, do you got one?
Yeah, I would just say, like, it's such a privilege to be able to do this. All the things that have come together to get you to that start line, all the money you've spent in it, all the time you've invested a lot. And yeah, like, just, it's such a privilege to be able to step away from your work and home life and just have that time doing something you love. And whether you don't love it all the time during the race, as Dave said, you won't, but yeah, it's such a privilege to be able to be there and just like remember that and just, yeah, keep on trucking.
That's good. Thank you, Abby. Shep?
Okay. Yeah, like for anybody that's trying to start or go as far as they can, you know, wherever they're at in their journey, I think the most important thing is just realizing that, you know, no matter where you are, it's not always going to continue to get worse. Right. When it hurts, some loops will be so terrible. I've had loops at like, you know, 16 hours that were like, this is miserable. In fact, when I did the run around in circles in the coffee shop, I almost dropped at hour 16 because it was minus 30 outside and I was so cold. I was like, I can't do another loop. I was miserable. And then my friends put all the chairs together in the middle of a coffee shop and I ran around in a tiny little circle. And I thought, there's no way, this is so small, and but I'll do a couple, it'll be fun. And then 24 hours later, I'm still doing it. So it doesn't, you know, it got much better from hour 16 to hour 30. So it just, that's just to say that no matter what you're feeling, that it is only temporary. And there's so many different things you can do besides stopping that will make it better or help it get better. One of my favorite tips is that as you're out on course, use the first day to pinpoint your locations on the course and what time you're generally arriving there. So find something that's really unique that you're like, oh, this fence post or a gate or a specific tree. And I pass that at 20 minutes. Okay, then when I'm out there and I'm looping, I'm tired, my mind is wandering. I go, how long have I been running on this loop? Did I walk too long? Where am I at? And then I see the tree and I can look at my watch and it says 20 minutes. And I say, okay, that's my 20-minute tree. I'm on pace. I'm doing all right. It's going to be okay. I can walk for a bit. And I get to the next one. And then you have that play throughout the course. You don't have to try to shoot for your 52-minute out of the hour. You just have to be within 2 or 3 minutes of your checkpoint as you go through the course, and really drive those in that first day. And then on day 2, you won't even have to think about it. You'll just know this is the 20-minute tree. That's the 30-minute mailbox.
That's really helpful. And even the thought, I really appreciate that, Shep, and the thought that like the subsequent hours aren't going to be the worst, and not believing that just because you're having a bad hour right now, it means that everyone going forward are going to be bad. I think that's actually really a great point, because it does turn around. I had that happen. I was running 100K, the one that I finished, and I felt bad from 20K in until 60K. And then at 60K, I don't know what happened, but everything was amazing. And I was like running and passing people and just like having a blast, and just something changed. And I could have gave up at 55, but really you just keep pushing through and you don't know what's actually going to come around the next hour. So that's awesome. Yeah, I would say just for those watching, don't give up in the chair. Don't allow yourself to quit in the chair. Like, allow yourself to quit when you don't finish the next lap. Like, don't allow the distance between your lawn chair and the start line to be so long that you don't show up for that next round, because you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen on that next hour, and things can change. And just go for it. And just I agree with what Abby said as well, like the fact that it's a blessing that you get to be able to run like this. When things get painful for me when I'm running longer, I actually just thank God that my body can do what it's doing. I'm like, God, this is so awesome that I get to do this and I can be active and enjoy it. So yeah, I would echo that, just the fact of just being grateful and enjoying it. And we meet a lot of new friends when we go out there, because you're spending hours with humans that you maybe didn't know at the beginning of the race. You get to forge these great relationships and then build on it from there. So it's awesome. Well, I'm so thankful the three of you decided to come in and join us today, and allow the people that are running the Youth One Oldman Backyard Ultra coming up here in May. And I know we're going to go for a ways. And when some of you signed up, we actually increased the time that we have for this race. So we now have enough time booked at this facility to actually break the world record if you want. So, come be prepared, drink lots of juice, and we'll maybe buy like a 5-gallon pail of mayo and throw it at Shep or something like that. That could be a good
That's something I want to see. I want to see that.
Yeah,
I think
I'll
it's
stay till that happens.
critical that we get him that with a soup ladle or something like that. But
You got to get a super soaker.
a super,
Yes.
Oh.
that's a good idea. I can feel that. That's really cool. Well, you guys, happy training. We look forward to seeing you here on May the 4th, and thank you so much for your time today.